That's interesting.
You learn. Well, we mentioned FanDuel a second ago. Let's start with it's always the first look-ahead topic that comes before the Super Bowl. The week before the Super Bowl, all the sportsbooks put out there 2025, or I guess in this case, the next year's Super Bowl odds before the Super Bowl is played.
Super Bowl 59.
Exactly, which will be next year's Super Bowl. And obviously, there's a million things that'll change in all these teams before we know. But the Browns opened up on FanDuel at 50-1 odds to win next year's Super Bowl. That is tied for the 18th best odds in all of football, tied with Atlanta and Indianapolis. It's the third best odds in the AFC North. They're well behind Cincinnati and Baltimore, way ahead of Pittsburgh. The 10th best odds in the AFC, which could be a little bit surprising. On other sports books, the Browns are much shorter odds. They were 35-1 on BetRivers. So
Did
if you
they
want
open 50-1? Because I thought yesterday you said
they opened 30-1. They're now to 50-1.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's significant.
Sorry. They were 30-1.
I'll say why
now
in a
they're
minute.
50-1.
Yeah.
But as of this morning, 10 a.m., the final check, they were 50-1 odds. Other sportsbook had them around 35-1. But we're a FanDuel show, so we'll use FanDuel. So if you're going to bet, use FanDuel. Bigger payout if you like the Browns. Do you feel like that's a little underselling the Browns prospects heading into next year?
Here are the AFC teams that have shorter odds than the Browns. We'll just do AFC because it's hard to compare odds between conferences because the NFC is weaker. So some teams that may be not as good might have better odds because it's a little easier to get in.
Yeah.
So the AFC, here's the order.
There are 9 teams with better odds, right?
The Chiefs are plus 750. The Ravens are plus 900. The Bills are plus 1,200. The Bengals are plus 1,500. The Dolphins are plus 2,000. The Texans are plus 2,500. The Jaguars, Jets, and Chargers are plus 3,000. And then the Browns, tied with, as Mike said, the Colts.
What do you make of
at
that?
Plus 5,000. I'm a little surprised. I think where BetRivers has them is better. I think it makes sense that they should be about 30-1.
Well, the money moved this number, clearly.
I guess, but how much money? Mike, are you sure you didn't look at the wrong book initially?
No, I'm 100%. I have the screenshot on my desk from yesterday.
It changed that much
Well,
in
that's
one
money.
day.
That's money that moves
But
it
how
that
many
much.
people are betting on the Super Bowl in the first day?
That's the day to do it.
Yeah, I guess.
If you're going to take a shot, on a team,
Yeah.
the first day that odd is established and that bet
But
is
you would
available,
think if people bet on the
take it.
Browns, the odds would go the opposite direction.
People are not betting on the Browns.
I see what you're saying.
I'm a little.
That's what I'm saying. So the money is moved by the people. Once the line is established, that number moves based on. Now, clearly, it's almost a futile effort to talk about it.
Yeah, but just
we don't know what's going on. We're talking about it because we have it. I get that, but like that number will continue to change after the free agent signings, after the draft. Anything like that can also move it. But I'm shocked, Bull. That it moved that much.
Yeah,
that means there's a lot of people out there that do not think much of the Cleveland Browns.
Well, and it has to do ultimately, and the thing that's not going to change for the Browns is that there's a lot of people that don't know what to expect or don't expect a lot from Deshaun Watson. And that's what the odds tell me. Now, that doesn't mean they're right.
I'm leaning more on your first part of that.
Yeah.
We don't know what to expect.
The odds tell me, what that tells me is people think the Browns is fool's gold.
Well, that too. They think they were an anomaly this year.
You had a nice couple
is at
records.
40-1.
Yeah, right.
I mean, really? And look, they almost beat the Browns on a Hail Mary last year.
So look at this. You got Chicago. If they bring what's-the-name back, if they bring Fields back, they got DJ Moore. They got, now you got they're going to have 2 top 5 picks.
They are. That's probably why they're rated so high.
They could be like, let me get Marvin Harrison Jr. and let me go get the best available player.
Well, and they could, if they keep Justin Fields, they could trade one of those picks and get more first round
get 2
picks,
more
get
first
whatever.
I think that's what they're going to do.
Right. If you're keeping Fields, you might as well trade the first overall pick.
Right.
Because somebody will trade up for a quarterback and give you even more.
I just think people, once you start to look at, once the Kool-Aid wears off, right? Even I don't drink Kool-Aid 3 times a week in the offseason. It's just bad for your health, bad for your teeth too. You got to be realistic. You got to start looking at this roster and skimming through it. I'm like, well, do I really like this offense more than I like this team? No. And then you got to take into consideration, well, C.J. Stroud and them just beat you last year with a bunch of, and they didn't have a lot of people playing.
True.
So how high are you going to put the Browns over other people? You take a look at the Jets. The Jets got Breece Hall. The Jets got Garrett Wilson.
Their number is what it is because of Aaron Rodgers.
Aaron Rodgers coming back, and they had a good defense. So,
but Aaron Rodgers is 40 too, and coming off an Achilles injury.
But he has a track record.
He does. His most recent success is more recent than Deshaun Watson.
That's true. I didn't look at it that way. You're right.
Who do you trust more to have a better season, Aaron Rodgers or Watson?
I'd have to say Rodgers.
Yeah,
But
sadly,
I'd rather have Watson because if he does bounce back, I got more years with him. But,
exactly. If you're saying which one would you take for next year only, I would take Aaron Rodgers. If you're saying the next 3, he'll be 42 in 3 years. Now look, Tom Brady, if he proved nothing else, proved that you can still win a Super Bowl at 45 years old.
True, but he didn't come off.
He's the outlier.
He didn't tear his Achilles at 39.
No, but he did win a Super Bowl after coming back from a torn ACL, but he was much younger.
The Colts thing is interesting. The Colts is that means they really like Anthony Richardson.
They love Anthony Richardson. Yes.
They got Pittman. I don't know why they would let Pittman roll.
I wouldn't.
They got Downs and Pittman, 2 young guys that can really be good tight end or good receivers. You got Richardson. You got 2 crazy backs. You got Taylor and Moss.
Yeah.
Why would you?
Especially, we had the Bills writer on yesterday. He said the Bills made a conscious effort to make sure they had veteran receivers around Josh Allen when he was a rookie. Essentially, Anthony Richardson will be a rookie next year.
Yeah, I mean, I would think I'd be very surprised if Pittman's not.
Hey, Bills, if you want, let me tell you something, Bills. You can't just let Josh Allen run out here. You guys are delusional if you think that you got enough weapons for Josh Allen. I would be over there. I would go give me 2 more receivers. They got Kincaid. They got Knox. The tight ends is good. They got Cook at running back. But you got Stephon Diggs. That's it. Give me another dude, and that'll be good.
Gabe Davis is still under contract, right, or not?
No, Gabe Davis is a free agent.
Oh, wow.
I'm not a believer in Gabriel Davis.
You never have
he
been?
hasn't been great.
Nah,
he had one big game in a big game.
Yes, and that kind of put his name
off that. Yeah.
I would, if I'm ranking the AFC teams for me in the chances of getting to the Super Bowl, I'd have the Browns higher than 10th in the AFC, but I'd have them closer to 10 than I would to 1.
So last year they were essentially 5th, right? I mean, they were the best wild card.
Yes.
Oh,
they were the 5th seed
after the season.
So last year they were 5th. It's hard for me to get my mind around the idea that in 1 year, without losing any major pieces, right, they're going to go from 5th to 10th.
It happens all the time.
You know what? I'm not a bettor, but I have a friend who's kind of like a professional bettor. He bets way too much. He always told me, don't be fooled by preseason lines and like when you place those bets at the beginning. He said Yankees odds are always going to be much better than they should be.
Right, because people
Same
bet
with
on
Chicago.
them.
Well, it's the number of people betting on them. Remember, no fan base in sports is bigger than the Yankees fan base in baseball. So they're all going to bet on their team to win, and that's going to make the odds. It's going to skew the odds. In Cleveland, so Chicago is a much bigger city than Cleveland.
I don't know, but the Giants, I think, have the worst odds of anybody.
Well, Giants fans are unlike Yankee fans. I do think they're the same person, typically. But the Giants fans, I think, are more negative towards their team than Yankee fans are. Yankee fans are so obnoxious to me. Just because, I mean, they always think, even if it's August and they're 8 games out, they still tell you they're going to win the World Series.
One thing I will say about Yankee fans, to be fair, is that every fan base of a team that always wins is obnoxious.
That's true.
Ohio State fans can be like that.
We are an obnoxious
Laker fans are like that.
Yeah.
Patriots fans are like that.
And it gets even worse when they're losing.
What's funny is when I was a kid in the 80s, the Mets were much better than the Yankees in the 80s.
Mid-80s.
Which is the only decade that the Mets have been better than the Yankees. And Met fans were way more obnoxious when I was a kid than Yankee fans. Well, I hated the Mets more than I hated the Yankees.
Do you think it was because they finally had their chance to roar and they were sticking it in the Yankees' faces?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But, I mean, listen, could the Browns go from the 5th team? And they're really better than that because they didn't have the 5th best record. They had the second best record.
I think they're third, weren't they?
Third.
Tied.
Whatever. But we see it all the time. Teams go from the 3rd team to the 10th, from the 10th to the 3rd. It happens all the time. Doesn't mean it's going to happen to the Browns, but it's not unusual.
And I can understand why they put them at that ranking because look how many people was hurt. Like, the Bengals will be different. The Jets will be different.
Well, we had a lot of people hurt too.
We did. But
our quarterback.
But here's the thing. They already valued those quarterbacks over ours to begin with.
Well, that's true.
Like, so Justin Herbert, they're going to be better. People think Harbaugh's going to do the job.
I'm surprised the Chargers are so low. If I was going to place a bet, it would be on the Chargers. You've got a quarterback or a coach now that's won at every level. He's taken a team to the Super Bowl in the NFL. He's coming off a college football national championship. He's got a premier quarterback, and I like the defense there too. It's surprising to me how poorly they performed.
But considering how bad they were, their odds aren't too bad. I mean, I think
where are they? They were with us, right?
No, they were like 30-1, I think. Let me see. Let me double check that.
I got it up, Bo.
That's worth a flyer.
Chargers were plus 3,000.
That's worth a $100 flyer to me.
Yeah, sure. I mean, the Chargers, and I actually think the Chargers and the Browns are good bets at their price.
I do. I think the Browns are good.
That was my next question. I mean, obviously this will change, and a million things are going to impact this before the season comes around. But at 50-1, it feels like a pretty good flyer price for a team that overcame immense amounts of adversity last season. And 50-1, if you simulate the season 50 times, I don't think it's a foregone conclusion the Browns cannot win one. Like, I feel like those odds are pretty good if you're eyeing the Browns heading into next season.
As constituted. No.
Well, I mean, but we don't know how anything's going to play out here, G. Like,
well,
there's a million different
you know
variables.
what? This bet, you're really betting on Andrew Berry. That's what you're doing. If you believe in Andrew Berry.
I disagree. I think you're betting on Deshaun Watson.
Well, no, that's the elephant in the room, of course. I mean, we all agree if Deshaun Watson doesn't become Houston Deshaun, we have a problem. However, if you are of the mindset that he will return to some semblance of that, and we saw it in his last half of football, then you're ultimately betting on Andrew Berry. Can he sprinkle in the pieces that Deshaun needs to find that success?
Let me ask y'all a question. Now, listen, people, first of all, it's the off season, so this is what we do for a living and speculate and talk about different things. So shut up in the chat. Don't be talking about, oh my gosh, why would you ask that question? You just do it just because you're stirring the pot. That's what we do for a living.
What are we stirring the pot about?
Listen,
You just mocked the chat. That might be the first time I've ever seen you do that.
Wait, what are they saying we're stirring the chat on? This is
well, no. Here, when we do shows and we in the off season, we speculate on the future. We're like stockbrokers. We're futures. We trade up, trade down. This is what we do for a living.
And it's just opinion, folks.
Yes, it's not like it's written in stone. People get all ruffled feathers because they went, oh my God.
Fans are so sensitive.
Can the Browns be the GameStop stock here? Go ahead.
So if you got and it's a two-part kind of question based on what y'all answer. If the Browns say win 8 games next year, why your eyes?
His eyes got that big.
That's a disaster.
8 games.
Yeah.
What does that mean for Andrew Berry and Stefanski?
Oh, that's not good.
Well, neither one's gotten an extension.
Okay, so
which is still bizarre.
If they win 8 games next year, I would assume they're getting fired. Which I mean,
do you think that they'll go into the season either or both without an extension?
They shouldn't, but right now it feels like they will.
I haven't heard nothing on that front.
Yeah.
No.
0. And so the second part of that question is that should motivate or should be the guiding light for Andrew Berry this offseason. If there was ever a time you wanted to go all out, I'd do it just so I could sign that paperwork and get me 3-4 more years.
But think about this for a second. If you don't extend Berry, and especially Berry, although I guess we don't know. It's not like a coach's contract. I don't know if we know for sure he had the same length of contract as Stefanski.
I would assume.
You would think that they would line up.
Yeah.
You're right. Think about it from this perspective.
But that is an assumption. You're right.
But think about it for this. Let's say this is Andrew Berry's last year on the contract, and they don't extend him.
Yeah.
If you're Andrew Berry and you think your job's on the line this year, you may make moves that benefit the team in the short term but hurt them in the long term. Because you're like, I got to save my job here, which I get, but you don't want that to be the situation.
Do you think there are safeguards in the system to prevent that? In other words, maybe it's Paul DePodesta, maybe it's Jimmy Haslam. They might look at that and say, look, Andrew, I see what you're doing. You're thinking about 2024. I'm thinking about 5, 6, 7, and 8. We can't make that move.
Yeah,
That's good for us
Ultimately, they're the boss. He's the boss, right?
So there are safeguards that could keep him from making
Jimmy might not know any better.
Jimmy said that?
No, I'm just saying.
I think Jimmy is the person. Somebody has to save himself from short term.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I
that's
think
fair.
in the past you have been exactly right, but I also want there is a tipping point where you are all in on 1 year to the detriment of the next year.
I think this is that year.
Jimmy's going to be here in 25.
Yeah, I would say this about the Browns, though, and I think you guys may disagree, but I do believe this. If Deshaun Watson, I hate saying this because we said it so many times, I'm kind of sick of saying it, but if he plays like the guy in Houston, they can win as is.
Yes.
Bull, absolutely.
I believe that. Okay,
because his talent around him here is better than what it was in Houston.
It's not as good as it could be, but it's good enough if he's that guy.
They can repeat their win total from last year.
Because Amari Cooper is way better. Now, listen, he had DeAndre Hopkins.
Sure.
Right? But his last year he did not.
DeAndre Hopkins at that point was better
than Amari Cooper, right? But he didn't have anybody like Njoku. He didn't have a tight end that good.
But he had Brandon Cooks, who was fast. He had he was a kid. Will Fuller was fast as hell.
Did he have Cooks and Hopkins together?
I think he did.
He had all 1 year.
He had at least 1 year.
Like that receiving core.
But he had a terrible offensive line,
right?
And he had no running game. In theory, he's going to have a good offensive line. In theory. And he's going to have a good running game.
Can I tell you what he said about Patrick Mahomes? Now people will make it seem like I said he was scared of Patrick Mahomes. Yeah. He said when he was talking to Quincy Avery, he said, listen, they were talking about the game between the Ravens and the Ravens and the Chiefs.
Yeah. He did another one this week?
I was watching it. I think he might have had another one. He was like, listen.
I think it was part of the same one.
Okay.
I think.
It might
was
be.
he talking about the game that had happened already?
So he said.
Gene, don't take my overtime quote here.
He said.
He's talking about Deshaun Watson, right?
Yeah. He said
never mind.
If Patrick Mahomes, when you playing the Chiefs, he said, trust me, I done played him a lot of times. When you get in that red zone, you better score.
You're not going to beat him with field goals.
Because if you can't get no touchdowns, Patrick Mahomes is going to get the ball, and you're losing. It just is what you will lose. You cannot beat him by. And I said, dang, man,
he's right.
He understands the climate.
He ain't taking the points.
Yeah, listen, he understands
you can't in that situation.
The magnitude of it. And this is why I want to let people know: if you have any hope of beating Patrick Mahomes and you want to go to the Super Bowl, you cannot say we think we good enough to just do X, Y. No, that's not good enough.
You need touchdowns.
You need a bona fide stud squad where you stack.
I don't disagree. I'm not saying it wouldn't give them a better chance.
Yes, okay.
I'm saying if he's that guy, they can win as is. Now,
I agree.
That wouldn't encourage me to not get another receiver.
You can't stand pat with that.
No, but I'm saying I do believe they are good enough as is, but I still want to get better. It's never good enough.
I'll say this, they're good enough to make the playoffs as is.
Yes.
They're not good enough to win a Super Bowl.
I think they could. I just think their odds are very...
I don't see that happening.
No, even lower than that.
Okay.
And by the way, on the take the points thing, there's a difference in taking points when you're up 24-10 and down 24-10.
Yeah. I hear you. I
didn't make that distinction the other day. Like, if the score was reversed, oh, hell, I'm going for it.
I hear you.
I have to.
I just don't even like the term taking the points because that assumes that the field goal is always going to be made, which is completely unfair.
It's also when you're going for it on fourth down, you're also assuming that you're going to eventually keep the sticks going and score a touchdown.
No, but the people
that's a bigger assumption.
The people that argue that you should take the points argue it as if the points are guaranteed and the fourth down is a question mark. The fourth down is a question mark, but so is the field goal.
Right, but I think the part of the argument you're not factoring in is, okay, you say take the points, you could miss. Even if you convert on that fourth down, there's no points assured in that. Okay, so you won that play.
Right.
You still have to keep moving the sticks and score.
But if you had gotten the first down on third down, you would never think, why would we not keep going?
This is what we call in philosophy a circular argument. McNuggets.
No, that is. You're right.